Welcome to the Project Management Prepcast, helping you prepare for the PMP exam. Here's your instructor, Cornelius Fichtner.
Hello and welcome to the Project Management Prepcast. So put away your books and listen up. I'm your instructor, Cornelius Fichtner. In this lesson, we delve deep into three important project documents. The business case, the project statement of work, and the project charter are so essential that we devote this lesson especially to them. We want to discuss the definition, purpose, and different aspects of each of these documents, including who creates them and when and how they are used. We outline the critical elements of the documents and explain the differences between them. You'll encounter them again in a future lesson on Develop Project Charter under the Project Integration Management knowledge area. We begin with a brief overview of the purpose of each document. First, we have the business case. The business case provides the business justification for the project in terms of what the organization will invest for the project and what will be achieved from this investment. The project statement of work, or SOW, on the other hand, is a description of the products, services, or results that the project is supposed to provide. Lastly, the project charter, or just charter, is issued by the project initiator or sponsor. It formally authorizes the existence of a project. It also provides the project manager, you and me, with the authority to apply organizational resources to project activities. By the way, the sequence in which these documents are shown here is the order in which we will discuss them throughout this lesson. It's also the logical order in which the documents are in fact created. So let's move on to the details of the business case. The PMBOK guide formally describes a business case as a documented economic feasibility study used to establish validity of the benefits of a selected component lacking sufficient definition, and that is used as a basis for the authorization of further project management activities. We immediately can see in this definition that the business case serves two main purposes. Well, that's because we highlighted them, isn't it? First, it establishes the validity of benefits of the potential project. Second, it is used as the basis for the authorization for further project management activities. In essence, the business case answers the question, why should we initiate this project? It is designed to help decision makers by providing evidence and justification for the project. The purpose of the business case is to show the value and importance of the investment in the project. For example, it analyzes how the project will support the corporate strategy and business objectives. In other words, what benefits does the project bring? It also establishes the feasibility of the project. In other words, do we reckon that we can achieve the result, product or service successfully at a cost that we are willing to bear? A proposed project is likely to be a non-starter if it's all just a pie in the sky. In other words, unrealistic. Creating the business plan is a part of the organization's project selection process. Therefore, the business case precedes project initiation. It usually is written by someone other than the project manager, the project initiator or stakeholder. In some cases, I've seen someone within the organization's PMO, the Project or Program Management Office, who is tasked with this responsibility. But you can even go further and add more details into the business case, and as such, the business case can then serve as the basis of the business plan at a later date. A business case is usually built upon a business need. There could be a number of reasons why an organization will start to explore the feasibility of a project and create a business case. Let's take a look at a few examples here. There could be a market demand, like with an aging population, an electronics games company could create a project whose objective it is to explore new games that are aimed at that specific target market. There could be an organizational need. For example, a recent corporate takeover could make it necessary for a project to re-engineer and streamline the business processes. Or there could be a customer requirement. A financial company could provide customers a way to handle transactions online through their mobile phones. We're not yet done. There could be 4 more possible and generic business needs, like there could be some kind of technological advance for which you'd need to undertake a project. For example, with the advent of cloud computing, a company could have a pilot project to introduce the technology to their organization. There could be some legal or regulatory requirement involved. For example, an aircraft parts supplier would need to launch a document management system project to ensure traceability of documents as per updated FAA regulations. Or there could be an environmental impact that prompts the business case to be created. For example, if there were an incident at another manufacturing company involving hazardous materials, this could mean engaging in a project to revisit our own organization's material safety procedures and guidelines. Or a social need. A project could be launched for the organization to partner with the local community. For example, spearheading the fundraising initiatives for a local school. As you can see from the business needs, the subject matter of each business case can be quite unique. In fact, there's no real format or structure that it has to follow. It can be formal or informal, brief or lengthy, but in general, you will find the following 5 items in a business case, beginning with the background of the project that explains why are we starting this. Then we need to discuss the business benefits and explain how does the project support and aid our company. We also want to discuss the expected cost of the project at the time that the business case is being written, given the information available at that very time. Then we usually include a gap analysis between the current versus the future state. In other words, what we have now versus what we will have in the future and what it would take us to get there. And finally, of course, there can be a number of alternatives or options that could be considered in order to respond to that particular business need. You typically list the cost, benefit, and risk assessment for each option. In this analysis, you should state the reasons for going with the recommended approach. In addition to using the business case as part of your project selection process, after the project is started, the business case continues to serve as a reference document. The business case needs to be revisited periodically as you are executing your project. The project manager and the project sponsor should look closely at the benefits and the goals that are described in the business case to ensure alignment with the project objectives and goals. They want to validate that the project is on track to deliver the anticipated benefits and results as they are stated in the business case. All right, that's all that we have to say for now on the business case. We are moving on to the project statement of work, which the PMBOK guide formally describes as a narrative description of products, services, or results to be delivered by the project. So really, the project statement of work is a description of the work in terms of products, services, or result that are expected of the project. And by the way, the project statement of work is sometimes simply called statement of work or SOW. And the work has much to do with the nature of the project that we outlined in the business case. Are you providing, for example, a product like manufacturing software for the aircraft industry or creating electronic games? Are you providing a service like information technology services for cloud computing, mobile banking, or providing hazmat consulting? Or are you providing a result? Are you raising 5 million for local schools, or reducing costs by 3 million and enhancing productivity by 20%? You can see that similar to the business case, the project statement of work is created a long time before a project is ever initiated. The project statement of work is usually an important component of your project charter, and quite often it is an input to the develop project charter process, or it sometimes serves as a subsidiary document of the project charter. Who provides the project statement of work is very much dependent on where the energy or impetus for the project comes from. For internally driven projects, the project statement of work is provided by the project initiator or project sponsor, while for externally driven projects, the customer usually provides the project statement of work. It is common for the external customers to include the project statement of work as part of their request for proposal. Just as with the business case, no two SOWs are alike. However, there are 7 items that are likely to be covered in most statements of work. And these are: why do we do the project in the first place? The goals provide the project manager and project team with the motivation behind the service, the product, or the result that the project is expected to produce. What are the business needs that are to be fulfilled by this project? The business need should already be stated in the business case. How does this fit with our strategy? The project statement of work may reference and describe how the project aligns with the organization's mission, vision, goals, and strategic objectives. And of course, what assumptions and constraints did we base our project statement of work on? There will be circumstances or events that enable or make the work possible, or on the other hand, there are limiting factors that restrict or set boundaries on the work that is to be performed. And what exactly are we doing on this project? The project statement of work should describe the details and characteristics of the product, service, or result that is expected to be delivered by the project. And then also, how are we supposed to manage this project? The project statement of work can describe how the creation of this particular product, service, or result should be managed. And lastly, how do we know that the work is acceptable? The project statement of work should describe an assessment method which will be used to gauge performance as well as criteria for successful completion of the work. Next to the project statement of work, there is also the procurement statement of work, which describes the procurement item in sufficient detail to allow prospective sellers to determine if they are capable of providing the products, services, or results. So both the SOW and the procurement SOW are part of your project documents according to the PMBOK guide, and they describe products, services, or results. But these are distinct documents. They're separate with a different purpose and audience. Let's take a look at the differences. The first difference lies in the knowledge area. The project SOW is used for project integration management, while the procurement SOW, as the name implies, is used for project procurement management. The second difference is your audience. The project SOW is written by the project initiator or customer for the project manager and the project team. The procurement SOW is written by someone on the project team for prospective sellers. You are trying to buy something, so you're writing this for those people who will be selling that something to you. And finally, they fall under different project management processes and knowledge areas. The project SOW serves as an input to the develop project charter process, which is under the project integration management knowledge area. As such, it indirectly aids in project scope management. The procurement SOW is the output of the plan procurement management process, and it is an input to the conduct procurement process under the project procurement management area. These differences between the project SOW and the procurement SOW should become even clearer when you go through the project procurement management lessons. We are moving on to the project charter, sometimes simply called the charter, which the PMBOK guide formally describes as a document issued by the project initiator or sponsor that formally authorizes the existence of a project and provides the project manager with the authority to apply organizational resources to project activities. As there is a constitution for the creation of a country or a charter written during the foundation of an organization, so is there a project charter to authorize the existence of a project. It also serves a very important role for us. It authorizes the project manager to apply organizational resources to the project. As we have seen, the business case and the project statement of work are both created a long time before the project starts. The project charter, on the other hand, that really serves as your project's kickoff document. We use the two other documents we have discussed so far as inputs to create the project charter. The charter is a statement which documents the objectives, scope, and participants on a project. It provides you with a preliminary delineation of the roles and responsibilities. And this word here, preliminary, that's a good word to use because even the statement of the scope and objectives that we talked about a second ago is also preliminary. It identifies the primary stakeholders on your project. Note that given what is known at this point, it is unlikely that you can identify all the stakeholders. That's why we say the primary stakeholders. The project charter should be issued by the project initiator or sponsor. Well, theoretically that is. More often than not, this task is delegated down to you, down to me, the project manager. We create the charter for the stakeholders because we have the experience in what a good charter should contain, and they most often don't. It is then signed by someone who is vested with the authority to sign and, most importantly, fund the project, who is external to the project. The project charter should be broad with just sufficient detail to initiate the project. This is because at the time that you're writing this, well, most usually you don't have a lot of detail about the project available yet. It is not considered a contract. There is no consideration, which is the benefit that each party gets or expects to get from a contract. That is money or promise thereof in exchange for the obligation performed to do the work. So really it is not a contract. Its main purpose is really to serve as the starting point for the project, but it should also be revisited at every phase to validate project decisions. As such, the project charter can also serve as a stage gate to approve the next project phase. But what exactly do we mean when we say that the project charter is created early on? Well, it is created as part of project integration management in the initiating process group. So really very early. It's one of the first things that you do on a project. It's also not uncommon, by the way, that it is modified at a later date because as you go through planning, for instance, more and more detailed information becomes available, and then you may wish to go back and update your project charter. But of course, only with the approval of all parties involved. Once the project charter is signed at that stage, at that planning stage, it typically remains fairly static. There are other project documents, such as the project management plan and its subsidiary documents, which will undergo much more progressive elaboration throughout the project. So when you are executing, monitoring and controlling or closing the project, it would be under unusual circumstances that the project charter would need to be changed. For example, a major change in the project, like a change in the overall direction or change in the project sponsor, might cause the project charter to be updated in these executing, monitoring and controlling or closing process group areas. One of the main reasons why the project charter should be developed very early on in your project is because it defines the authority of the project manager. It clearly establishes the name of the project manager in the charter itself. The project manager is John Smith. By doing that, it gives the project manager the right to make decisions about the project. It gives the authority to the project manager to lead this project to a successful conclusion. When it comes to the purpose of the project charter, we have already heard it formally authorizes your project and it names you or me as the project manager and thereby gives us the authority to lead the project. Here are a few more. It also outlines the direction and the constraints of the project. You will be provided with project objectives within your project charter. Project deliverables are also defined in the project charter. Remember, it is early on in the project and these objectives and deliverables, they will be on a high level. Later on, we will progressively elaborate them and describe them in more and more detail. And of course, the business case, remember, describes the business need. Of course, the stakeholders' needs has to be described in the project charter. And last but not least, project priorities are defined in here as well, according to the ranks assigned by the sponsor to the scope, schedule and cost, for instance. When it comes to the elements of the project charter, I'm going to have to repeat myself because I said no two business cases are exactly the same, no two statements of work are exactly the same, and now I'm going to say yes, no two project charters are exactly the same. However, there are some common elements that you will find in them. To me personally, the most important one is the project purpose or justification. After all, we do our projects to support a company's business, so this one is at the top. Next, objectives and success criteria. You begin with the end in mind, where you define project success and objectives up front when you create the project charter. Then we have high-level requirements. This is a high-level description of what will satisfy the needs of the customer, the sponsor, or other stakeholders. And then there are the project description and boundaries. This is also at a high level. This will help you define the scope of the project later on. And of course, high-level risks. You should know what some of the high-level risks are based on the analysis done when you created the business case. Your project charter may also include summary milestones. You may know of significant events or points which should be included in the project charter, and also a summary budget. And by the way, the summary milestones and the summary budget are those that are determined at the time that the project charter is created. It does not mean that these are both set in stone. You will have a stakeholder list. The project charter identifies the primary stakeholders on your project at this time. There will be project approval requirements. This is related to the objectives and success criteria in terms of defining who decides and who has the authority to sign off if these objectives and criteria are met. And of course, the project manager and sponsor. The project charter includes the name of who is assigned as project manager and as sponsor. It describes what authority they are given. So for the project manager, the project charter gives him or her the authority to expend resources, not only financial resources, but also equipment, human resources that you need for this particular project and to do the work. And the project sponsor, named by the project charter, has the authority to make certain decisions with respect to the project. let's review, and let us end this overview of the business case, project statement of work, and the project charter where we began, by comparing the purpose of these three documents. The business case. Recall that the purpose of the business case is, of course, for the purpose of initiating a project, as the business case helps in project selection. The project statement of work describes your project deliverables, like I said, sometimes in excruciating detail. And the project charter is the kick-off document for your project. It formally gives authority to you and me, to the project manager. Now let us extend our review by revisiting when the three documents are created, who creates them, and what the key features of each one are. So, who creates these documents as when? Business case and project statement of work are usually created before the project manager begins. So we project managers are often not included in this process. The business case, it is the project initiator who is the author of the business case, while the project SOW can come from either the project initiator or sponsor or the customer. The project charter, however, that is created in the develop project charter process. Purely theoretically, it should be created by the stakeholder, the project initiator or project sponsor, but more often than not, this document is developed by the project manager for the stakeholders. Then the project sponsor will sign the project charter, which gives us the authority to manage the project. And then, of course, we want to take a look at the features, the what of these three documents. The business case contains a feasibility assessment, cost-benefit alternatives analysis, and recommendations in order to convince the decision makers to opt for this project. The project SOW contains expectations for deliverables and results. It helps assure consistent deliveries and helps ensure that we deliver the deliverables that are required of us. And the project charter contains your project objectives. It also identifies stakeholders and, most importantly, it identifies you. It identifies the project manager. It gives you the right to expend resources, make decisions, lead the project. And that concludes our overview of the business case, project statement of work, and the project charter. So what type of sample questions do we find online and in books? Well, here's one. Here's the question. The answers will be on the next page. Everything's a bit longer this time here. So the question is, your project sponsor verbally confirms that he has resigned and that a new sponsor is to take his place. You are concerned that the project charter, which authorizes you as the project manager, also names the project sponsor. What should be your next step? So, is the correct answer to this question A? You should not make any updates to the project charter since it cannot be altered during project execution. Is it B? Since you are the project manager, you should immediately update the project charter. Is it C? You should ask the current sponsor to update the project charter and announce it officially. Or is it D? You should wait for the new sponsor to take office and then update the project charter. What do you think? I'll give you a few seconds here to think about this one. The correct answer is, of course, C. You should ask the current sponsor to update the project charter and announce it officially. Remember who the owner of the project charter is. Since the project sponsor is the owner of the project charter, it is his or her responsibility to transition sponsor responsibilities to the successor before leaving office. Asking him to update the project charter is the correct next step. And with that, we have come to the end of our lesson. So Justine and I say goodbye. Justine?
Farewell. God knows when we shall meet again.
Until next time.